Teachers and doctors joined the truckers' strike in Paraguay, broad sectors call on the government to meet their demands. In an open letter to President Biden, Cuban scientists announced his dismissal of the island's capacity to deal with the pandemic. And Zambians are ready to head to the polls on Thursday to elect the president and the National Assembly. Hello, welcome to teleSUR English. I am Estefania Bravo from the headquarters of Quito in Ecuador. This is from the south. Teachers have joined the trucker strike in Paraguay. Truck drivers have been on strike for a week now, while educators started mobilizing this Tuesday alongside other unions to demand a basic salary and other benefits. Representative of the Federation of Educators of Paraguay, Silvio Piri, said that the mobilizations seek to put pressure on the government of Mario Abdo Benitez to honor the promise of a basic professional salary and increase the education budget for the year 2022. Paraguayan education workers stressed that they would remain on the streets until their rights are respected.
We're going to stay here until this is passed, right? At least Article 4, Clause E, and then we'll make a decision.
And Paraguayan doctors also joined the demonstrations that have been taking place all over the country with the participation of teachers, farmers, truck drivers, and indigenous people. Doctors are demanding compliance with a signed agreement for a larger sector budget.
What we are asking for is for each doctor to earn the same as another doctor for the hours worked. Today we have doctors working twice as much as other doctors and earning half the salary. That is the demand we've had for almost 10 years, and we want it to be addressed.
Members of one of Guatemala's biggest rural and indigenous organizations blocked roads across the nation, calling on President Alejandro Yamatei and his Attorney General to resign over the firing of a top anti-graft prosecutor who reportedly uncovered their acts of corruption. Protesters have been taken to the streets for almost 2 weeks to denounce the ousting of Juan Francisco Sandoval, the recognized head of the Special Prosecutor's Office Against Impunity, who was investigating potential acts of corruption by President Yamatei. And in the midst of an unusual military parade and high tensions, Brazil's lower chamber was set to vote on Tuesday on a bill to implement printed vote receipts pushed for by President Jair Bolsonaro. The convoy of troops and armored vehicles through the capital, announced just the day before, was announced by the legislature as an act of intimidation. The deputies will vote for the bill intends to change the current electronic voting system, requiring printed receipts from some ballot boxes that Bolsonaro claims are prone to electoral fraud. Critics have denounced the bill as a move by Bolsonaro to sow doubt regarding the country's electoral system, as opinion polls show him trailing behind ahead of the 2022 elections. A tropical wave has threatened the eastern Caribbean, and experts say it could become a tropical storm. The system is forecast to become a tropical storm as it moves the northeastern Caribbean Sea tonight. Tropical storm conditions are expected in portions of the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico tonight and are expected to begin in the Dominican Republic by Wednesday. There is a risk of wind and rainfall impacts elsewhere in portions of La Hispaniola, the Bahamas, and Cuba during the next several days, although the forecast is more uncertain than usual since the system is still in a formative stage. The United Nations condemned the massacre of 240 civilians, among them 107 children, in the Ethiopian region of Afar. The United Nations Children's Fund is said to be extremely alarmed by the report attacks against displaced families that sought refuge in a health center and a school in the region of Afar on Thursday, August 5th. UNICEF Executive Director Henrietta Fore stated that the escalation of conflict in Afar and other areas neighboring Tigray is disastrous for children after months of crossfire that has left 400,000 people, among them 160,000 children, in famine conditions. The agency stressed that at least 4 million people in Tigray and the neighboring regions of Afar and Amara are in an acute crisis situation. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees stated it has regained access to 2 Eritrean refugee camps in the Tigray region and warned that people living there are facing dire conditions.
UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, and its partners have regained access to the Mayaini and Adikharush camps for Eritrean refugees in Ethiopia's Tigray region. Violent clashes in the area had prevented UNHCR staff from reaching the camps since 13th of July. The delivery of urgently needed assistance restarted on the 5th of August for the 23,000 refugees in both camps. However, access is limited by a complex and fluid security situation, and refugees continue to face dire conditions. Basic services such as healthcare remain unavailable, and clean drinking water is running out.
In South Africa, on International Day of the World's Indigenous People, Khoikhoi descendants performed a cleaning ceremony on land recently reclaimed as part of the historic process of restoration and cultural revival. Johan Abrahams has more.
An ancient cultural cleansing ritual performed on land they were alienated from more than 3 centuries ago. When the Dutch colonized the tip of Africa, they also stripped the indigenous Khoikhoi from their land, culture and traditions. This area is known as Grabouw, about an hour's drive from Cape Town, and known for its export fruit. During the 1600s, this was Hainokwa land under a Captain Klaas Dora. In 1693, Dora's kraal was attacked by the Dutch East India soldiers and thousands of livestock confiscated. Mark Matthews, a descendant of the Khoikhoi, who under colonial rule and apartheid was classified as colored, is part of this group, now reclaiming the land taken from them.
Our Khoi heritage gave us the right to take the land back, and also the United Nations Declaration allow us to be part of this and be here on that specific land.
The more than 1,000-hectare land will be governed as trust land by the people themselves. While the group might still face a legal battle, Mark is confident about overcoming that obstacle.
We are not afraid for a court case because we're ready for everything. We've got a lawyer team on our side. We know the history. We also know United Nations made provision for that, so we're ready for that.
A member of the South African Cabinet, Minister Patricia de Lille, has given her support for the project.
We need to continue to make sure that we fight for more and better houses for all our people.
Part of the plans for this cultural village is to have it declared a National Heritage Site to form part of the government-approved National Khoi and San Heritage Route. Johan Abrams for teleSUR in Cape Town.
We're taking our first break now. Join us again after this, but also don't forget to follow me on my Twitter account at teleSUR for more news. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Cuban scientists signed an open letter to U.S. President Joe Biden denouncing his recent comments, dismissing the island's capacity to deal with the coronavirus pandemic.
We cannot understand that a world statesman such as a United States ruler is echoing statements that respond to media manipulation. The facts speak for themselves. Cuba is one of the countries with the lowest COVID-19 lethality in the world, despite the persistence of the blockade.
If you took away the political obstacles and this almost medieval hostility that we are facing, these two very close countries, Cuba and the United States, and with such similar scientific infrastructure in the scientific school of thought, we could do huge and great things.
The president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, warned that the country is at the brink of its capacities in infrastructure, resources, medicine, and oxygen facing the COVID-19 health crisis. The chief of state assured that the government had not done all it could to contain and minimize the effect of the illness, and affairs would be much more dire as of now. The president indicated that even with the current problems, the most urgent sanitary conditions in Cuba can be guaranteed. He confided in the population and asked everyone to grasp on the difficulty of the matter and called upon the authorities for a more efficient and effective management to reduce the infection. The Italian government has sent humanitarian aid to Cuba to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. The shipment of medical supplies, which departed from the Italian region of Lombardy, contained donations funded by the government as well as solidarity organizations. It should be recalled that Cuba sent doctors to Italy early on the pandemic to help save lives in the European nation badly hit by COVID-19. As COVID-19 cases rise in Germany, Chancellor Angela Merkel highlighted the need to get enough people vaccinated against the disease.
For those who are not yet vaccinated, and with the number of infections increasing, we rely completely on testing. I also ask all of you, friends, acquaintances, family members, who may already be vaccinated, to promote vaccination in your family circle, friends, sportsmen, simply because it is a protection for all of us.
The World Health Organization on Tuesday called on the global leaders to act before October to change the disgraceful situation of unequal access to COVID-19 vaccines. The World Health Organization advisor Bruce Allerwild said that the world should be disgusted with the situation. The UN Health Agency has been increasingly outraged at the hoarding of vaccine supplies by rich countries to the detriment of poorer nations. Allerwild called on the public to put pressure on politicians and business tycoons to consider vaccine coverage in poor countries as an electoral and a financial investment, noting that change was in the hands of some 20 powerful people. In Niger, 12 deaths due to a cholera outbreak as reported by the Ministry of Health. In southern Niger, 12 people have died and 201 are infected in 3 regions. The rains helped spread the disease further, the country's health minister said. Niger's southern neighbor, Nigeria, is also grappling with a cholera outbreak, which has killed at least 653 people in 22 of the 36 states since March. China recalled its ambassador to Lithuania and demanded the European country's government reciprocate the act to uphold the One China principle. A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson declaration published on the Foreign Ministry's website said that the Lithuanian government had recently announced its decision to allow the Taiwan authorities to open a diplomatic affairs office under the separatist principle of sole Taiwanese representation. The move was taken by the Lithuanian part despite China's warning of consequences. The spokesperson explained that the acts taken by Lithuania's officials violate the established points of a communique between Beijing and Vilnius and attempt against Chinese sovereignty and territorial integrity. The spokesperson concluded that any action to undermine China's unity and seek separatist results will meet a dead end, and that the sole legal government that represents the whole of China is called the People's Republic of China. We're taking our last break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. Zambians will head to the polls on Thursday to elect the president and the National Assembly. Voters will decide whether to re-elect President Edgar Lungu in the midst of an economic crisis. His main rival, in what polls suggest is a close race, is 59-year-old Hakainde Mihimishela, making the sixth run for the presidency. Experts say the result of the closely fought election will set the tone for investment in the copper-rich southern nation. The UN Special Envoy for Myanmar warned of a full-scale civil war if a successful dialogue process isn't held between all sectors to address the country's current crisis. Christine Schreiner stressed that clashes between the military and local defense forces are continuing. The World Bank predicts an 18% drop in GDP this year, and the International Labour Organization estimates 2.2 million jobs have been lost since January. On top of that, the UN official noted that Myanmar is currently facing a severe third wave of COVID-19 with more than 3,000 new cases reported on Monday.
We see a lot of violence on the ground. Clearly, many people are afraid of the huge violent scale of the military people, but also the people defense forces are using now more and more weapons which are not artificially self-made weapons. They are also using now professional weapons. So I really hope that a dialogue can happen to avoid a breakout of a full-scale civil war.
The Taliban has seized another 2 provincial capitals in Afghanistan's west and north in under a week. Fars City, capital of the province with the same name, has been a focal point for the group's offensive in the country's west for years. Government officials had fled to an army headquarters several miles outside the city, and the main prison had been reached by the insurgents. In the north, the months-long Taliban stranglehold of the capital of Baghlan province finally succeeded, forcing government forces to retreat. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden defended his decision to pull U.S. forces from Afghanistan despite the rapidly deteriorating situation there, a country that has seen 20 years of foreign intervention and conflict only for the Taliban, supposedly the target of the operation, to be gaining strength.
No. Look, we spent over $1 trillion over 20 years. We trained and equipped with modern equipment over 300,000 Afghan forces. And Afghan leaders have to come together. We lost death and injury, thousands of American personnel. They've got to fight for themselves, fight for their nation.
Firefighters in Algeria battle over 31 blazes in high temperatures and extremely dry conditions, reported local authorities. The forests of the Kabylie region east of the capital Algiers burn in walls of flames and draw smoke to the skies as water shortages in the country persist and the temperature rises to 46 degrees Celsius. There are at least fires in 14 districts and 5 people have lost their lives to them. Algeria is one of the Mediterranean countries to struggle with wildfires, along with Greece, Turkey, and Cyprus. And 10 of these wildfires remain active in the south of Italy, with an alarming situation mainly in the Calabria region, as general concern is taking over the heat wave that is expected to intensify with the temperatures over 40 degrees Celsius. Officials explain that most of the 70 ongoing fires are condensed in the southern region, especially Sicily, Calabria, and Apulia. On the other hand, in the Greek island of Evia, the fires still scorch the crops and forest areas as brigades and volunteers struggle to avoid disaster from striking the populated residential boroughs.
The previous days have been some of the most difficult for our country for decades. We gave, and still give, a battle with all our might. But we are facing a natural disaster of unprecedented proportions. In a few days, 586 fires broke out in all corners of Greece. Fires which, due to the unprecedented heat wave and the many months of drought, are now very difficult to extinguish.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also be sure to follow us on our social media accounts. We're on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English, I am Stefania Bravo. See you next time.